Now this is funny. I have been thinking, like the last 2 days, and I haven't done a video in a while, and I have my reasons for that, but I come on today because I've been running this video I've been planning on doing in my head, and Doug does a video that's pretty much the exact same video I was going to do. Kind of. If you haven't seen his video, I would recommend going and see it. It's about the UFC and Dana White and kind of the crap that's been going on with him. And I agree with pretty much everything he said to a big portion of it. I don't usually talk about MMA, and there's certainly reasons for that. Biggest reason is I like doing reviews, and you can't really review an MMA card. You know, there's nothing preset. Either it's a good fight or it's not a good fight, and depending on what you like, depending on if you like to see just guys get annihilated, knocked out, if you like seeing competitive fights, if you like to see strategy, I mean, it's very hard to sit there and say this was a good, you know, you can't really do that. So, and I don't really like talking about MMA because, to be honest, I don't like the UFC. I haven't liked the UFC in probably at least 5 years. I could fairly say, and the reason is because I was a huge fan of Pride. Fighting Championship, for those of you that know what that was. And being that I kind of got spoiled because Pride was head and shoulders better than UFC for the very reason that Pride showed the very fault that I think Dana White has, which is he doesn't know how to put good matches together, first of all, because he's a boxing promoter and he thinks like a boxing promoter, so he does like a boxing promoter. Set up, match, match. Instead of let's have guys actually go out there and put on good matches. You know, he's allowed himself to fall into this rut that so many, and I have a point to this video. There's actually an actual point to this video, and it's not just a response to Doug. Where he thinks very much like a boxing promoter instead of what an MMA promoter, in my opinion, should be. One of the biggest problems with boxing, for anyone who follows boxing, is guys don't fight anybody because of politics, because of money, because of politics, because this guy, you know, this guy is too hard for this guy to fight, or this guy isn't a good fighter, or this guy is not a great fighter, but no young fighter is ever going to fight him because he's too tough and, you know, he could lose. And boxing has put in our head that one loss, once you lose a fight, it's over. And that's stupid, because if two guys go out there and they have an amazing fight, and a guy loses an amazing fight, then he shouldn't be punished for that. He should be, you know, it should be, well, they had an amazing fight, let's have another amazing fight, because it's matchups. You know, you have guys who just aren't good against some guys. You have guys that just, you know, guys have off nights. Stuff happens. Don't believe me? Ask Krokop. You know, here's a guy who I still believe is one of the best fighters in the world, no matter what anyone else wants to think, who, you know, fought at a weight that he shouldn't have been fighting at, fought the first time probably in his career that he didn't fight. They had to fight completely clean, not saying that he used steroids, but, you know, you and me could go out to GNC, buy supplements, you know, supplements, go take a test, and we wouldn't be able to be in the Olympics, fight in UFC, fight a boxing, fight any type of boxing, do many sporting events, because we would, it would show we had performance enhancing drugs in our system, even though they're not steroids, and there's some supplements that fall into that, and not that I'm not. So you have to keep that in mind too. And that he was fighting at, you know, a very, very lightweight. When I saw him, I was like, my God, he looks small. So, you know, there is that part of it too. In the second fight, he had freaking broken ribs. I mean, come on. And instead of, you know, and it's typical UFC, and this is what I don't like about UFC when stuff like this happens, instead of putting praise upon the guy who wins, they take the guy who they think should have won and say, oh, look, this guy wasn't as good as we thought. You know, well, maybe the other guy just had an amazing night that night. The one thing, and this is what I'm getting back to, the one thing about Pride that I absolutely loved was, and was that they did that. If a guy upset, that was good, but a guy who, you know, the fans liked, they didn't degrade a guy because of it. They give him another chance because you wanted the best fights, and guys weren't scared to lose. That's another thing. Because you have that atmosphere of, well, you have to win every fight, guys are scared to lose and they fight far more defensively. Where in Pride, go watch Pride, you would have guys go balls to the wall because they weren't scared of losing. They know, hey, if we had a good fight and I lost, I'd get another chance down the road. You don't get that because you're dealing with a guy who is used to promoting boxing, and boxing promoters think in that way of, we have to have undefeated guys. Guys have to have, you know, all of this stuff instead of just having good fights. You know, if UFC, you know, Dana White said that he won, you know, everyone knows he wants to you know, be bigger than WWE. He needs to be bigger than boxing first. And if he can't, if he's going to fall into the ruts that boxing is, and trust me, having all of the different organizations isn't going to hurt. Okay, anyone that thinks that is their major problem, then you're wrong. Their major problem is the fact that he's starting to go, okay, I don't want my guys to fight this guy. I'm going to protect this guy so that I can have this fight down the road instead of just having guys fight. You know, for example, he didn't learn anything from Pride. Why is it that Dana White has not had something similar, okay, to what Pride had in the Grand Prix? Okay, those were great things. Okay, and everyone liked those. Why wouldn't you do that? Because you know that, you know, people like tournaments. The way Pride had the Grand Prix set up worked. You could definitely do that. I don't understand. You know, and I just miss Pride for that reason. I miss the fact that I could watch Pride and I could, you know, and anyone that doesn't think that Pride was good, you know, because they believe this hype that UFC puts out there that, oh, see, we bought them so they weren't as good as us. Keep in mind, their first show in the U.S., they drew 11,000 people. That was their first show in the U.S. They drew 11,000 people. Okay? You know, they didn't go under because of bad business. They went under because it was found out they were being backed by the Yakuza and their TV sponsor pulled out. That's why they went under. That's why the UFC was able to go in, and it's a complete failure. You don't have Fedor in UFC. This is moronic because what don't you have in boxing right now? You don't have a good heavyweight division. If I'm UFC, I'm buying up all of the top heavyweights and I'm saying, look, we have heavyweight fighters. We can go out there and we can do what we want to do. Okay? It's moronic. It's stupid. However, if you want to see a good MMA pay-per-view, okay, watch the Affliction banned pay-per-view. This thing, I'm going to have a link, looks amazing. People are calling it, I've heard Super Dave call it the best pay-per-view people probably aren't going to see. It doesn't have a lot of pub. I haven't heard a lot of people talk about it. It's unfortunate because this card, top to bottom, is kick-ass and reminds me of a freaking Pride card. And I'm so stoked for this card. The main event is Fedor versus Tim Silva. That should be an awesome match. The rest of the matches are very good too. I mean, it's all good stuff. I mean, really, it is. Go look if you're a diehard MMA guy. Definitely go check this out. You know, like I said, I don't usually talk about MMA, but I did want to come on here and I kind of ranted. But I wanted to talk about the Affliction pay-per-view because I really plan on getting this pay-per-view. I think it's really good. It looks awesome. The card looks awesome. I hope that the people who are backing this are willing to back it for, you know, at least a while, maybe 3 pay-per-views, because this looks really good. And if you're an MMA fan, I definitely recommend checking it out. But, you know, and my big thing is, you know, this, apparently Dana White's scared of them. Why they're scared of them and not at least see, I don't know. But he's scared of them because he's going to put a free show opposite of them pay-per-view night, which is, you know, I'm just like, why are you doing this? But, you know, I definitely hope that this looks like a Pride event where we have the pyro, we have the entertainment factor, because I think that's what's missing, and I think that's what UFC completely lost when Pride went under, is they should have looked at Pride and said, yes, they have the freak shows, But you know what? There's a place for the freak shows because they draw, and then they draw in. You can have the good matches. You can have the guys that can actually fight, and it works. That's all I kind of wanted to say. There was more I wanted to say, but I just don't have time. But anyways, I'm out. Have a good one. Later.